Now being 7 o'clock, I'll open the meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Opening comments, Vice Chairman first.
No, I'll pass.
Pass. Josh?
Pass.
Pass. I'll be all set. Under Section B, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Board of Selectmen meeting March 21st, 2019, and the minutes from May 9th, 2019. Entertain a motion?
Okay, I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the meeting minutes of March 21st, 2019, and May 9th of 2019.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Second motion. Discussion.
I looked them over. They look lengthy.
Okay. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the report from the auditor.
Take this right here.
Pull up a chair, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, from the people at home, this is our audit report, the annual audit of the town finances, as well as a management letter of recommendation that he usually gives every year.
Yes.
Introduce yourself and-
Yes, Matthew Hunt, Clifton Larson Allen. Thank you to the board for having me here tonight to talk about the audit. I know you got a full agenda. So my goal is to try to summarize the audit report in a condensed fashion and leave time for some questions. So I do want to go over the two primary reports from the audit, both your financial statements and your management letter. So we'll start off with the financial statements. First thing really to point out in the financial statements, you'll see early on in the financials is the auditor's opinion. There is an unmodified opinion on the town's financial statement, so that's the best opinion that you can receive on a financial statement. Basically, it means that your financial statements are free of any kind of material misstatements. So instead of jumping into some of the numbers, what I want to focus on is primarily your key funds, the general fund and your enterprise funds. So if you look at your balance sheet, which starts on page 15, you'll see some information related to the general fund as of June 30, 18. So I want to focus more on the bottom part of the general fund column, the fund balance section. Total fund balance at the end of the year was about $1.9 million. You'll see above the total line, you'll see a number of different categories of fund balance. So I want to quickly go over those as well. Your committed fund balance was about $917,000. Basically, for the most part, that consists of amounts that were set aside to help fund the FY19 budget. Then there's a signed fund balance of a little over $59,000. That relates to encumbered amounts from the FY18 budget that were unspent that were also moved forward into FY19. That leaves you with unassigned fund balance of about $931,000. That is an important number that bond rating agencies look at. It's a really good measure of the level of your reserves. Of course, you want to make sure that you maintain a certain level of reserves in case of any kind of emergencies or situations where your revenues go down or your expenses go up. So that number, the best way we like to compare it is to actually compare that number to your total expenses to kind of give you a gauge as to where it's at. That ratio was 7.9% for FY19. As a frame of reference, it's a little bit lower than the ratio from the previous year of 10.4%, but it is consistent with 2 years prior, back in FY16. For all intents and purposes, what we usually tell our municipal clients is as long as that amount is at least 5% that's where you want it to be. So I do feel like the town's reserve fund balance in the general fund is at a healthy level. In terms of results of the general fund, you'll see on page 17 is where you'll see all the revenue and expense activity for the general fund. You'll see in the bottom in net change in fund balance, you'll see the general fund did experience a small decrease of about $59,000 during FY18. I do feel like one other important statement for the general fund to give you a feel for the year's operations is on pages 59 and 60 is where you'll see a budget to actual for the general fund. And what you'll see on that report is that basically on a budgetary basis, again, there was a slight decrease in the general fund. But if you look at your final budget column on that particular report and you look down to the bottom in your net change in fund balance, you'll see a negative number of $950,322. I always like to start and hone in on that number because essentially what that number means is that, as is the case with most municipalities have a certain level of funding from free cash, prior year encumbrances, revenues don't necessarily match expenses. So really, if everything had gone according to budget, which it never goes that way, the decrease in the general fund actually would have been $950,000. The fact that you only experienced a small decrease in the general fund is if you look at the last column in that financial statement, the variance column, you'll see that revenues came in higher than expected by about $464,000. You'll see that expenditures came in less than expected of about $389,000. So due to revenues coming in a little bit higher, expenses, conservative spending, expenses coming a little bit lower, that's why the general fund was able to stay fairly flat during FY18. Circling back to pages 21 through 23 is where you're going to see information about your enterprise fund, so I want to go over that quickly. Page 21, you'll see Water Sewer Enterprise Fund has total net assets of $4.2 million. You will notice that there's an unrestricted net asset amount of about $1.3 million, but that is largely caused by the fact that you have a short-term note outstanding for $1 million related to some emergency repairs that came about a couple years ago. In terms of revenues and expenses on page 22, revenues were about $1.6 million, which is consistent with the prior year. Expenses were $1.9 million, which is a pretty decent decrease from the previous year. Again, in the previous year, you had those emergency repairs, which sort of inflated the expense numbers in that fund. In terms of your rubbish enterprise fund, page 21 shows total net assets of about $128,000, most of which is considered unrestricted. And then on page 22, you'll see revenue and expense activity for the rubbish enterprise fund fairly consistent with the previous year. So those are really the three key funds that we wanted to sort of highlight as the general fund and your enterprise funds. Really nothing negative to report there. I feel like all those funds from a financial perspective are operating well. So just a couple other quick financial highlights. Your footnotes of your financial statements, there's several footnotes within the financials. I just want to highlight a couple of key ones. Note 9, starting on page 45. That's where you'll see information on the town's long-term debt outstanding. The town has done a good job of keeping their long-term debt at a fairly low level. There's only $3.5 million of outstanding debt at the end of the year, and there was no new long-term debt issued in FY18. Note 10 on page 47 relates to OPEB, other post-employment benefits. One key item from this year's audit is that the Governmental Accounting Standards Board is the governing body for accounting standards for these financial statements, and there was a new GASB statement that was implemented in FY18. It's GASB number 75. What essentially that GASB statement did is it actually took your OPEB liability, which was previously being reported differently in the sense that it was being reported as to the difference between an actuarial funding level versus what the town was actually paying. GASB 75 essentially takes the actuarial liability over a 30-year horizon and takes that full number and puts it right on the balance sheet. So the expectation was that that implementation was going to actually increase the OPEB liability, and it did. The town's liability went from $1.6 million to $4 million. Again, that doesn't mean that anything changed from an actual reality perspective. It really is just a financial reporting standard that got implemented that just brings that liability a little bit higher. Last footnote to point out is note 14 on page 51. This is information on your pension liability. Some new standards came out a few years ago, which essentially everybody knew that all pension systems in Massachusetts are not fully funded 100%. So this particular GASB statement that came out a couple of years ago said, well, we should actually recognize that as a liability on every municipality's financial statements. So that came about a couple of years ago. As of now, the town's liability for pension is $9.5 million. That's an increase from $8.2 million in the previous year. So again, in lieu of the fact that you have a busy agenda, I did want to sort of condense down to what I thought were the key points. So those are really the highlights that I feel related to the financial statements. And again, I feel like the town's finances are in good shape as of the end of last fiscal year. So before I move on to the management letter, does anybody have any specific questions about the financial statements?
Where are you showing the pension liability?
The pension liability is actually on page, if you bear with me.
Page 52.
Yeah,
That's where you'll see the footnote, but if you actually want to see it on your balance sheet,
it's on 53, isn't it?
it is on there as a disclosure, but it's also on page 12,
Yeah.
which is your statement of net position. So if you want to see it and see what the number is on your actual balance sheet, that's where you'll see it. So if you look at page 12, if you look at maybe 3/4 of the page down, you'll see a line item called net pension liability. And you'll see that the total on that is $9,501,267. And essentially what that is it's the portion of the county retirement system that relates to Nahant. So the county retirement system has an actuarial valuation done that says here's the total liability for the county pension system, here's Nahant's proportionate share, and that's what ends up on your balance sheet.
Good.
Okay. All right, so moving on to the management letter. So the management letter this year has a couple of new comments, and then a few comments from previous year's management letters that remain to be resolved. So starting on page 1, related to the Treasurer Collector's Office. During FY18, the Treasurer Collector's Office did experience some difficulties, a few of them as we summarize in the comment, in terms of cash receipts not being consistently deposited or recorded timely, your monthly reconciliations, bank reconciliations, accounts receivable reconciliations not being consistently performed timely. An outside consultant was hired to come in and review the office's procedures and help with reconciliations. Really, at the end of the day, there were some consequences. There were some additional burden in the town accountant's office to process some of the financial transactions. There was some additional cost that you had to incur for the outside consultant. And at the end of the day, it did cause some timeliness issues in terms of your both your internal and external financial reporting. So really, we just wanted to highlight some of these areas just to point out the importance of the Treasurer Collector's operations. And I know my understanding is the town has hired a new Treasurer Collector. And so we'll take a review in FY19 to see if the operations of that office have improved. Page 3 is a comment related to succession planning. The Treasurer Collector's position is actually an example, but the town has experienced some other recent examples of key retirements and key positions, which is the case with all municipalities. And a lot of municipalities are really struggling with succession because there is an aging workforce, and there isn't necessarily a lot of underlying talent out there in certain key positions. So we felt like it would be a good, important to put in a management letter comment about the importance of succession planning. It's important for any organization, whether you're a government, a private business, et cetera. And so really our recommendation is for the town to, as part of their strategic plan, part of their formal policies, to start to think about succession planning and really be strategic about it. And be intentional about making sure you know what retirements might be coming down the road and sort of come up with a plan to make sure that you can fill those positions as retirements occur. The remaining comments in the management letter are some comments from the previous year that still need to be resolved. Page 4 relates to information technologies. You'll see there's just a couple of comments of some improvements that could be made there in terms of written policies, password requirements, reviews of user accounts to make sure that people have access to your systems, are all active employees, and should have access to those systems. Page 6 relates to risk assessment and monitoring. This is an important element of internal controls. We recommend this for all municipalities to have a formal risk assessment program where a group of people are consistently meeting, talking about various financial risks that the town may have, and making sure that there's controls in place to be able to handle those risks. Page 8 relates to financial policies and procedures. The town does have, I think, good financial policies and procedures, but in terms of formally having them in written documents, again, we feel like that's a best practice to be able to do that, and I know the town has been working on that. It is quite an undertaking. It does take a while to get all of those policies and procedures written, so we just continue to carry this managed letter comment until it's fully resolved. And same thing with page 9, disaster recovery plan. This is a fairly comprehensive process. I know the town has been working on it over the past couple of years, and we just recommend the town continue with its progress and finalize that plan. So that's pretty much a summary of the management letter. Any questions on that report?
In your management letter, you suggested cross-training.
Yes. Yes. That was one of the things that I think the consultant that was hired also had identified, is that the assistant staff in that office, it would be good for them to be able to know how to perform certain procedures that the treasurer collector perform in case there's vacations, things of that nature, if there's reasons for them to need to pick up the slack, to be able to be trained. And I know that that's something based on the management's response that's been worked on over the past year or so, is to get the assistant staff in that office trained in all different aspects of that office.
I noticed the IT security, I think the town administrator has worked diligently on that, and it's pretty much secured now, so.
Obviously, because of financial constraints, we can only get so much done as we go, but we've certainly made a lot of improvements since bringing on HIQ, which is our new IT firm, but a lot of the information in this report represents prior to
Right.
that point. So we have already accomplished a lot of the recommendations, but you won't see a lot of that until next year's report.
Right.
I'm thinking maybe we should, in a couple months' time, just go through the items in the management report and see how we're doing on them.
Well,
Yeah.
we can make up a kind of a spreadsheet.
Yeah,
List-
at a high level, Tony can say, this one's half done, or,
Well, list the items and then status.
Yeah.
It could be an ongoing monthly report to us. And the other thing, the cross-training, I like the idea of cross-training. Especially, we've got, 4 assistants, and have them cross-train, and move them, to the various offices.
And where we have such a small workforce, that's a good idea, Richie.
Yeah, I suggested a couple times before you came that we should, cross-train these individuals, so they're knowledgeable about all steps in the town hall. The treasurer collector, the assistant treasurer collector, go selectmen, go, you know what I'm saying, and then the accountant. I would change them up a little bit and have them all trained so they know. And then what systems that we need to have them trained on, the computer systems,
You have
That's
a
a
new
good
system,
idea.
son?
For accounts, you mean? Yeah, before I got here, we had brought on Zobrio. It's, unfortunately, the accounting software, and maybe Matt, you can speak to some of this, but accounting software and operating software for municipalities is extremely expensive. And, because of our limited budget, we ended up going with one of the lower-end softwares. And whenever you change software, it's it's an extreme undertaking. So, you know, the staff, they deal with it. They work really hard to deal with those struggles of the limitations that come with that software program. But certainly it adds to some of the time and the, you know, the efficiency of the office, because, you know, you can't just run on to the software like, you know, many communities have Munis. We looked into, I believe the town looked into that, but it was
$500,000, isn't it?
$500,000 or more.
It's crazy.
And it's just really, really expensive. But that program is, you know, what most communities use. All offices are integrated together. You can log on, quickly run a report, get relevant information. It does a number of things. It's just, you know, it's really, really expensive. So we have to kind of take the long way sometimes when we need to get things done. But I think that's partly identified in the report too.
And I would agree. I mean, Munis is considered the best software out there, but it is very expensive, and it's quite an undertaking to be able to convert to that. It really just comes down to, you know, if it's not broke, you know, why fix it at the end of the day? And I think it really comes down to your personnel and their abilities and their talents and everything. So, I mean, I concur with Tony that yeah, it'd be great to have that Rolls-Royce system, but is the cost really justified? And again, I would agree with Tony that I think that the town staff has done a good job of working with what you have and doing the best with what you have. So it's a balance.
Remember Kathy Famulari told me it was $500,000 4 years ago. I can imagine what it is now.
Right. We did quickly took a look at, you know, the Community Compact has some available grant funds out there for IT-related upgrades to help municipalities get, you know, increase efficiency, and it's something that we're going to look into and potentially apply for. It's extremely competitive, and the budget is, you know, their budget is limited, so maybe if we get a grant there, we could cut the cost down a little bit by using some of that grant money. But again, even with that amount of money and with the ability to purchase that software, it would be a tremendous undertaking to switch over to it.
This is a pretty good report since he's brand new. The town administrator's only been here a few months.
No, absolutely. I know Tony has done, again, like Tony said, you got to take it in with a grain of salt. This is a report based on the fiscal year ended June 30, 18, and I know there's been a lot of progress that has been made in FY19. So no, it's certainly a credit to Tony. Absolutely.
And we'll pick up those two items under the management letter. We'll get those done by the next fiscal year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great idea, like you mentioned, to have periodic sort of status updates on the management letter, make it part of your agenda. I think that's a great idea. That's something you should do, you know, on an annual basis.
It's just a simple spreadsheet on, you
Sure.
know, so that we can do it, and we'll send you a copy of it so you know that we're
Absolutely.
working on
No, that's great.
it. Good. Listen, thanks very much for taking the time.
All right.
Excellent, well-written report, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Well-written, both the management letter and your audit.
Oh, thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
You always do a great job, and your firm should be congratulated.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And I hope I was quick enough.
No,
I'm just joking.
you're fine.
Okay. All right, have a good rest of the night.
Tony, I'd suggest we write a letter on his behalf to the company, saying that we're very pleased with his complete analysis of the audit and the recommendation of the thing. Is there any other discussion
No.
on the audit?
Nope.
We'll have that spreadsheet put together, Josh, so that we know, you know. And then Tony will work up a schedule for the cross-training report. Okay. Next on the agenda is the Citizens Forum. Would anyone like to speak first? Mic is open. Just give me your name, address, and subject matter.
I guess it's me, Ralph Colson, 38 Bayview Ave, Nahant. I come here and I'm very upset, but I'll try to keep myself within control. I'm coming here to kind of talk about how I see democracy work in Nahant and how it's worked for me in the last couple of months. Came to this mic at a town meeting when my neighbor, Beth Kelly, wanted to buy a piece of property. I stood in favor of it, even though I mentioned during that time that the property that she's talking about buying on the piece of paper doesn't match the boundary lines of our street. And I said I was concerned about that. I believe the selectmen, somebody said, well, don't worry, we'll work all that all out. So the committee was formed, the Town-Owned Land Study Committee. Tony, you were part of that committee. Who else was part of that committee? Was it Sheila?
Julie Tarmy, Sheila Hamilton.
Perry?
Yep, Perry, Barrasso. I think there's 7 members.
Yeah. And basically a group of people from around Nahant. We met 4 times, Tony, maybe 5?
I lost count.
Yeah, I agree. I lost count too, and there were a lot of. We went around a lot of circles. We tried a lot of different avenues. We tried some compromises. We even considered some compromises. And the reason why when the committee finally ended up voting, it seemed to me the committee, and I'll paraphrase it, my own committee, the committee voted against it. I think it was 5-1 or 6-1 against selling the property or abandoning the piece of property, depending on how it is under the conditions. And the reason why is when we came to look at all the property lines, we began to find out that what I thought was my property isn't, and what she thought was her property isn't, and what the Passanisi's property line isn't, and that all the property lines are beginning to look off. And if one party buys one piece of property, then if Beth can buy her property, there's no reason if Linda and I want to buy the end of my street and make my driveway bigger, because now it's being shut off by her taking the half circle that belongs there, and the Passanisis can probably buy their half circle on their side, and the neighbor in the corner, I'm not sure what he has other than that right-of-way that goes down there. And meanwhile, on the same street, I believe the Kellys and the Sulos are fighting over the right-of-way that goes down into what used to be the boatyard, because right now they park their trucks next to each other and fight over the piece of property every day. Clearly, my point being...
Excuse me. I really want to...
My point being...
I don't want to hear anyone else.
Okay.
Tell me your reason.
I will tell you my reason. So, the gist of it is, we came to the meeting, you voted, they voted against it. We came to the Selectmen meeting. You very clearly said, let's get together. Let's get together. We said, fine, let's get together. I go online and I asked Perry, when's the meeting? Well, it can't happen this week. I said, Perry, don't make it on the so-and-so date. I got a national sales meeting. I go on YouTube today. I send Perry an email asking about the meeting, and I get a YouTube back telling me that there was no meeting, that you already voted on it. And then I watch the YouTube, and you clearly state that I'm okay with it, which is not true. You actually say, Tony, in the YouTube meeting of the meeting, gee, didn't we talk about getting together and talk about this?
Easy.
Well, that's what we did. We got together to talk about it, but there was no meeting. So basically, you form a committee, they vote against it, you don't even meet with the committee, you don't even talk to you might have talked to the committee, but the committee wasn't here during the vote. You didn't obviously vote the way they did. Why do you even form the committee? And then you talk about forming another committee that you never form. Instead, you take the vote. And then the new selectman, Josh, here says, are you sure they were okay with it? And you say, oh, yeah, I met with them all. You never met with me. We were never okay with it. We were supposed to go back and discuss it. So I'm really more upset than just Beth buying the piece of property and the condition. And my biggest concern about the property is it's stairs now. Once she buys it, it doesn't have to be stairs. Some new person could buy that, is going to buy that piece of property because it's definitely going to be up for sale, clearly, and somebody could knock the house down and put a wall there, and the town just sold Beth that piece of property so some new guy can put a wall up.
Again, you know,
So basically, my concern is this. Did you not say we were going to have a committee and discuss it?
Did we?
You, actually, you're the one who said we were going to get together and have a meeting. You did.
Well, for some reason, I assumed when Mrs. Kelly withdrew all the side lot petition, and she just wanted to purchase the front stairs. And then I talked to the neighbors up there.
Right. James across
I didn't talk to you. I went by your house, but you went home. I talked to the Passanisis.
Yes.
They were fine with it.
They're across the street. Who's the closest to the Beth Kelly property?
Well, I
We
mean,
are.
but your original complaint was the side, the wall and the driveway.
That's not true. You weren't at the meetings, Tony. You were at the meetings. We went through all this. Tony attended the meetings. You didn't, and neither did you, nor the other selectmen. Tony went to the meetings. I talked about it. I'm concerned that when they sell the house, somebody can put a wall up there. And you just sold it.
Where the stairs are, how'd they put it?
Yeah, why not?
How are they gonna get in their house?
Because the house is way off on one side of the lot. And
Is-
it's a
it-
huge
it-
lot. So you're making an assumption that the house is gonna stay there. We talked about doing it an easement, that the steps could stay as steps. That was one of the options. We're gonna go to a meeting and talk about it. We weren't against that idea of an easement. We were Tony, you were at the meeting. I wasn't saying no to that. We were saying, let's talk about it. And somehow the committee voted against it. Well, I didn't vote against it. I didn't say, hey, it's possibly an idea, because I'm concerned about somebody making those steps into something else. And basically, we went to a meeting, we went to the selectmen meeting, and again, you said you were going to form a committee, and you
Okay,
didn't.
can I stop you, Ralph?
Go ahead.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna try to, one, no wall may be placed thereon that is higher than the wall currently there, and no structure may be placed in the area directly in front of the home other than a stairway. Those are the restrictions we're gonna put on it. This happened 80 years ago, and I just can't understand why, for the life of me, I can't understand. So what you're saying is you want them to tear their stairs down?
No, we didn't say that.
Well, then-
My biggest, so
that's what- I mean,
none
that's
of
what
those
we're gonna do
restrictions have
that-
been, none of that has been consulted with me. I went to all the meetings, and I'm standing here now, and don't know that, but I went to all the meetings. I was waiting for the next meeting to come, and you didn't consult with us. You just went and did it your way.
Because
And it was
they
mentioned
couldn't-
by Tony that you hadn't
Because they
committed.
couldn't get a quorum. Beth kept flying up here, and I can, it costs money, to keep flying back and forth from Florida to here. She was under the impression that it was gonna be on the agenda, and they were gonna have a meeting. There was no meeting, because they couldn't get a quorum. So, with the restrictions on it, I don't see a problem with it. You can read it if you want. You can read the
We'd like-
restrictions.
I think I'd like to, as the abutter, to see what the restrictions are on the piece of property. Just to clarify things, if your neighbor was going to put a new porch on the house, what would you be able to get? You'd get to be able to see what the construction...
if it's-
Right. Well,
This
geez,
is-
guess
this-
what? I'm the neighbor, and I haven't seen that.
But
And I
as a-
didn't even know about the fact that you voted on it
But as a
until
neighbor,
I saw it on
Your
YouTube.
concerns were the side lot.
The side is actually another issue that, can I just say?
No, but originally, that was your complaint.
What
was
about-
the sidewall. No, you heard it plainly. It had nothing to do with the stairs out front.
That's not who we questioned. If Tony knows, we went through this all at the meeting. The sidewall is a concern, and the town did cut it off at a different spot. Beth Kelly and I still have an issue that part of my wall is on her property. She's never addressed it with me. I have no idea what she's gonna do.
Yeah, but that, again...
That's
that-
between us, but I'm just...
Again, let's stick to the subject matter
So
and stay on the
So I would
point.
love to get a copy of what you're deciding to make this look like, so that I can have it and review it. That's what we'd like to have.
Okay.
That has not been supplied.
We do that?
Well, I have the...
But in fairness to them, we have to have a meeting. They have to, look, I can understand her frustration too, okay? And I can understand yours too, Ralph, but this is not gonna, I don't think it's gonna inflict on your property at all. I would ask counsel. I mean, is this?
No, it won't. And I'm kind of surprised at your comments because I attended the meeting at which the Town-Owned Land Study Committee took the vote, and you were in
did
favor of
attend.
the sale. You did not oppose it with the restrictions. So now the board's telling you that there will be restrictions, and you're still not in favor. I'm confused.
I'm willing
I
to
really
read
am.
those restrictions and go over it. Nobody told us in the meeting that there were restrictions with it.
Okay,
I don't
well-
believe anybody mentioned on the YouTube that there were restrictions. And my biggest concern was that somebody said there was going to be a meeting, and there was no meeting. Instead of a meeting, there was a vote. And I'm the one attending all these meetings with you, Tony, and you mentioned at the meeting, geez, I thought we were going to have a meeting, and no meeting occurs. So I tend to feel like it's being ramrodded over me without any information to me.
And
And
she-
I'm the abutter.
I can tell you that she flew up here several times
I know her,
to
one
come
of her
into no
brothers died.
meeting. It's frustrating. I don't see how this, look, everybody's encroached there, all three of you.
Yes.
Am I right?
Well, I'm closer to Beth, we're neck and neck.
I
My
mean, you're
my
encroaching on the
front
street,
door is
too.
less than 10
I mean,
yards.
We can just say no.
15 yards away from
Turn
this
around
guy.
and make everybody tear down everything they have.
I am concerned to some extent, just like other people in town, the committee voted, that this is going to start a precedent. And quite frankly, I actually consider petitioning the town to buy the front of my driveway. Why not? My driveway has an issue.
Again,
This happened-
again.
That's another
Hold-
issue.
hold on,
That's another
hold on,
issue.
Hold on.
So basically,
You're jumping off point here.
so I will go back and,
Excuse me. We're talking about the stairs in the front of her property.
you're talking about more than stairs, but
Well, you know, it's
written right here.
It's the stairs that.
plus the piece of property to the left of the stairs.
But I talked to the Passanisis, okay, and they have no problem with it. Now, your property and the Passanisis property and the other property, that's like B, C, and D. We'll address those issues when we have that problem. But we're only addressing Beth Kelly's issue with the stairs only.
That's wrong in saying it's a stairs only.
Well,
It's not the
okay,
stairs only. It's a
okay.
property to the left of the stairs. Not that I'm not saying it's, but that's not correct saying it's a stairs.
Again.
Left of the stairs, looking at her house to the left.
The stairs are there, and the property next to the stairs is on town property. She's
Okay.
going to buy that too, which borders up to my property.
It's essentially, it's a retaining wall,
okay.
because the property is at an angle.
Right.
So it's a retaining
Well,
wall
I have
with
the
stairs on it.
plot plan right here. Let's take a look at it.
One of the problems you have is when you look at it, you don't quite, well, you probably do. The
This is
physical
what I got.
structure of the driveways don't
So
match.
tell me your recommendation. What would you
I
like?
I actually voted.
No, what do you want done? I haven't heard that point.
I am happy if we read these constraints, and if the constraints are adequate, then we consider it. My wife and I have to decide together, but we could consider this not being an issue.
Okay, have you seen the,
I just gave it to him.
oh, you just gave it to him?
Just gave it to him.
Were those restrictions put there, put forward before?
We talked about those at the meeting at which you attended. The one thing I think you're not appreciating is the board is here today to rescind the votes from last week's meeting and then redo them in a better way. So I don't think you know that. But the votes that were taken at the last meeting regarding 30 Fruit, but there were 32 votes, they're going to be redone just to make them, well, one will be doing it, just to make it cleaner. Okay, I don't think you realize that. So with that, you might find some more comfort. And though that one vote that will be retaken will be with restrictions. Now, how we massage those restrictions, we can still discuss. That's still up in the air. And you'll have an example of those in the paper that Tony gave you.
Do you want to just take 15 minutes to read it and think about it and come back, or?
Well, this is on the agenda for today, so you know. You're in public comment section. 34 Bayview is on the agenda as an item, so it will be discussed in the main part of the main
So let's-
body.
We didn't know that.
You want to go through, it's on the agenda, but let's go
Sorry, we
through.
didn't know that. Quite frankly, I didn't see the YouTube from the prior meeting until 2 hours ago.
So do you
All
want to,
this crashed on us in the last 2 hours.
we'll do that first, and then we'll have,
Can we read it during the time?
then you
take
can have
other
public
things?
conversation. Say again?
Could we read this and then
Sure.
do other business and come back to it? Is that?
Sure.
Yeah, because we have other stuff on the agenda first.
Wait a minute.
We can do all this stuff first, Richie, right?
Did you want to speak now?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Linda Bellafato. I live at 38 Bayview Ave, and I'm here to talk to you about Bayview Ave and what's happened, and I think Ralph has said some of it. I found out yesterday that Bayview Ave was again on the agenda tonight. I've been watching the Selectmen's meetings. The Bayview Ave was not on the agenda the last Selectmen meeting, therefore we had no idea that the vote was happening to abandon the street. And that's where my concerns have lied. I have in no way ever been in favor of this sale, and I'm not sure where you got the idea that we were, but I haven't been. And when at that meeting that you attended, I talked a lot about the street and what my concerns were about the street, not necessarily the property and the stairs. So we found out yesterday about this being on the agenda. I found out today watching the YouTube that the vote happened. I had no idea there was a vote until then, and that was probably an hour before Ralph found out. I'm also concerned that you voted to abandon a street, no notification to any of the residents of that street that you were going to abandon it, that they had any opinion that they wanted to voice about it. Supposed to be a public hearing. I'm not sure if a selectman meeting without it on the agenda is considered a public hearing in a place where you can abandon a street. But I would have liked to have known about that and been present at that meeting. There has also been very little reference to the Town-Owned Land Study Committee report that was made. They made an extensive report, many pages. They debated this for 4 or 5 meetings. A lot of talk went around about what to do. They made a recommendation that has not been discussed, or I've not heard it discussed at all. At the last meeting we came to 2 meetings ago, you did state that you were going to have a joint meeting of the Town-Owned Land Study Committee, all the abutters, and the people trying to buy the property, and that we were going to work on a mediation or a way to solve this. Looks to me like you skipped the meeting and you made a mediation of your own. I don't appreciate finding out about it later and not being included. We are direct abutters and we're concerned about our street. I'm concerned about this document in reading it because the wall that's there is quite high. So if you're going to restrict a wall to a height, I'm concerned about the height of that wall and what you're restricting it to. Your Town-Owned Land Study Committee did a great job, and I feel like they haven't gotten the respect they deserve as far as their recommendations. I do believe you're setting a precedent for other issues. Yes, it's stairs. They've been there for 80 years. They've also been made bigger and improved over the last so many years, questionably with permits, no permits. They've also, I have no problem with them being moved and opening up the street for the use as a street, just so you know where I stand.
Absolutely. You have no problem with what, Linda?
Pardon?
I didn't hear the last
I
line.
have no problem with stairs being moved to allow the street to be used as a street the way it was deeded to be.
Okay.
You gonna take a few minutes to read that? Huh? I'll be honest with you, I'm a little confused because when Beth Kelly came up with the original proposals, the both of you spoke in favor of that. No, excuse me, I'm just, again, and then the problem came up with the side wall and that, and she took that out of the proposal completely, and she just wanted the stairs sold. Excuse me, let me finish. And I didn't hear any opposition, any problem. I thought it was all good. The Passanisi said it was okay. They had no problem with it.
The reason,
The other neighbor upstairs from above you, they said there was no problem.
The reason-
Now that, your problem, this is we're dealing with Beth Kelly stairs only. Your B, C, and D homes, which is the Passanisis and yours, and we'll have to deal with that when it comes up with it. I mean, that's a separate issue and an independent problem. But we're not dealing with those B, C, and D homes. We're just dealing with Beth Kelly's home.
well, the reason why our opinions change, because the lines aren't drawn. When you physically look at our properties, they aren't our properties.
Is this
The
it right here, Ralph?
Passanisi's fence is not their fence.
That's it, right?
Well, wait a minute.
Yes.
Why don't we do this here? Why don't we have,
That's all.
why don't we have,
That's-
why don't we have the town manager meet with the town council, and we're gonna have to survey these properties to find out what we're doing here.
Can I,
Sure.
the properties have been surveyed twice now.
Twice now. Oh, okay, I knew.
I surveyed it once for 3,000.
And I would say, the Town Land Study Committee did meet a number of times. The abutters were present. If I can recall, the concerns of yours were one that, the street is supposed to be a circle, although it's never been a circle. Number two was that the original survey included your wall. That has now been solved their wall has been cut out of it. Their wall still encroaches on town property, but it's cut out of the disposal of the town property to Beth. Number 3 was concern about if this were to be, even with their wall cut out of it, if this were to be sold, would that a potential future homeowner could come and build a fence or a wall or something in the place of where those stairs are. And we did talk during those town and land study committees about a covenant, which is being proposed now, that would essentially say, we're just taking what is actually in place in real life right now and formalizing it on paper, not allowing anything more to happen so that Beth can sell her property.
It's deeded that way, right? It'll be deeded that way.
It would be deeded that way with this covenant. So I can understand the concern of the process, and I think what happened was we were supposed to meet, the committee couldn't get a quorum. Beth had flown up for that meeting. We didn't have a quorum, so it was voted on last Board of Selectmen meeting. So the fix was, let's put it on the agenda, rescind last week's votes, and include some of these restrictions that weren't included in the last meeting vote. It was done in an attempt to include the concerns that you have raised, aside from the fact that it formally, the town will never be a circle, which it isn't, and it hasn't been, even though it is on paper. So that was the idea here, was the fix, and again, Beth isn't here tonight too, so I don't know. They've been surveyed. I think what I'm hearing is more of the process, although it's not in favor of it at all. But the issue here that I think that the board is seeing is that Beth is trying to sell her home, and she can't because, unfortunately, her home includes encroachment. So the other option for Beth would be to tear down her stairs and wall and find a different way to enter the house. That wouldn't, you'd still have an encroachment on the other side of the street, and you'd still have the encroachment right next door, but
It looks like you are encroached very, 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 very little.
very little.
Just a little corner, correct?
Easy, easy. Let's,
My encroachment, quite frankly, is greater than that. It's actually the front of my driveway all the way across my property.
No, I'm just looking at, I just wanted to kind of
Right,
verify.
again, when you look, quite frankly, if you look and find out, I've got some nice cobblestones I put in the town property for you guys, make it nice and smooth. Did a nice job with it, a lot of hard work.
Ralph, let me ask you this question. Can you live with what you just read?
It's much better than when I walked in the room tonight.
No, but can you live with it?
I think if Linda and I can live together, yes.
Well, I want to make sure. We're gonna be rescinding the vote that we had taken, 2 weeks ago,
To fix it.
and we're gonna fix it now with that new vote tonight. Now, if you can live with that, then
It does make us feel much better.
You can,
Your wall or the
well, there's a piece,
wall, basically the retaining wall that her stairs come down onto? Yeah, it does include that. Well, it's high
I
on
think
one-
what you might want to do is
Wanna
just
look at
make
it,
sure
Ralph?
it's
It's right
exactly as it is.
That's what
Because
it,
what happens is Beth's wall on one side is really high, and we wouldn't want that wall to be built across the whole piece of property at that height. And I don't think that's the intention of what you're writing. You're saying leave it as is. If as long as it's as is, that's
they
fine.
can't do anything else with it. It stairs, that's the way it's gonna be, and that will be put into the deed. Just like, and we're having this problem all over town. This is,
You do.
that happened 80 years ago. Right now, we're having problems in Little Nahant. People are just taking rights-of-ways, and we are working on that, believe me, to stop it, so. But something like this happened so long ago. It happened, again, it happened to the gentleman that sold me my first house. he decided he was gonna build half his house on town property, so I couldn't buy it until they fixed it, so, but it happened so long ago, I mean, I'm surprised they didn't pick it up when Beth bought the house, you know?
Dan,
But it
can
didn't
I ask
happen
you,
when I bought the house.
could the motion made by the Board of Selectmen tonight say something along the, instead of saying no wall may be placed thereon that is higher than the wall currently there? Can it say something along the lines of, nothing can be built beyond what is currently existing to be described more specifically later in the deed?
Yes.
So then, so this way, this covenant would restrict to simply what is in existence today and nothing more.
Right, that's fine, sure. We can set limitations like that. That will roll into the deed and will last for...
Can you, maybe mark this up?
Yeah, I can do that.
So Ralph, am I hearing you right? You can live with this?
The couple of things that Tony just asked to have written in make us feel much more comfortable.
Okay.
He said, well, you have
And
it,
then the other properties up there, Ralph, your property, Passanese, we're not gonna deal with those. We're not gonna start moving, you know, that's like B, C, and D, and Beth Kelly's A, and we're only gonna deal with A. We're not gonna deal with the other three properties.
I realize that, but
Okay, until we have someone come forward with a problem. There's never been a problem, all of a sudden, this is surfaced because she needs a clear title and she wants to sell the house. We're trying to help her too. And
one just realizes that if you're when we're not planning to sell, we're planning to stay here, but if we did, we might have the same issue that she has, et cetera, and they all seem to be off in the Passaneses, et cetera.
we hope you don't sell.
We're not all, we're all not totally crazy about the whole idea, but what you've written is much better now than before we walked in the room, not knowing that was going to be amended, and now you've rephrased it in a better manner.
And then, you know, when the deed restriction is written, we can take a closer look. I don't know if we can include, you know, specific measurements or survey or pictures so that you're also not dealing with the stairs getting larger or wider or the wall getting wider or larger too. So I think the intent of this was to simply allow, you know, not to improve what is on that property or allow for that to happen, but to just clear the title so that she could sell. So with this motion, we'll be able to specifically call out what's on that property today, and it will restrict it to only that or less. So if somebody were to purchase the property and tear the house down and the wall and the stairs, they can't do anything more than what's there today, but they could remove them. Is that right, Dan? Well, you're typing over there, so you didn't hear me, but just say yes.
Yes. No, they can't, I heard you. They can't remove them, sure. They're not adding to it. I don't think the issue for the neighbors are anything taken away. I think things are adding, that might be added in the future. That's what your concern is, my understanding. Because right now, there's a retaining wall, there's some sort of flower bed, the stairs come down perpendicular to that wall, and the other retaining wall is actually yours. And that's the one that was originally included in the plan that was carved out in February of this year, which is the plan the board's looking at now. So, right, they can take things away, sure, but they just can't build up, expand, make it fatter, anything like that. Because I think,
they can't box you in, and they're not gonna, you know, and I don't think I mean, if you were to sell your house, I don't think your wall would create a problem. It's a structure, but it's not part of your house, so to speak, you know, so.
I think it would make sense, you know, maybe for the next town meeting to, you know, put together a petition to get an article on there that would allow for the purchase of your property that's encroaching too, and same with Passanese, so this way all three will eventually be dealt with.
Yeah, it would clean up your deeds.
Excuse me, you have something you want to say?
Emily Potts, 114 Pond Street. I just want to ask if this final agreement has been passed before the Town-Owned Land Committee for their involvement or approval.
Has it passed?
Right, this
They
arrangement.
voted on it. They took a vote on it, correct, Tony? They gave us their recommendation.
They took a vote on they made a recommendation on the sale of the property. This motion that you're about to take, they have not reviewed, but it encompasses things that were spoken about during the
So the answer is no, right?
The answer is no.
On this motion, they have not reviewed this motion that Dan's writing.
No, they're not required to. They're just supposed to study the option of selling the property, which is what the board had received from the special town meeting. It then sort of bounces to them. They review just the idea of selling the property. The specifics and nitty-gritty really comes down to the board's vote eventually, which is what this is now.
I would just see some value in including the people who had done the study first in having their input, or just the respect of sending something back to them. I think volunteers put forth a lot of time in this town and do a lot of work, and it should be treated with that respect.
Well, what's being discussed today is nothing new to the board, or to the select committee. They've heard these things before. This is not new to them. Restricting the, I was at the meeting when we talked about restricting the height of the wall and the stairway. That's not new to them. They've heard this before.
I think that's more of a question for the abutters anyway.
Covenant.
And then we make a
Well, yeah, well, these are the covenants. These are the covenants.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move that we rescind the motion the board passed at the Selectmen's meeting on May 16, 2019, which was to make approximately 230 square feet of land at 34 Bayview Ave available for disposition.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Seconded.
For discussion? Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion's been rescinded. Do you have a new motion?
Okay, I move that the Board of Selectmen, make approximately 235 square feet of land in front of 34 Bayview Avenue, as depicted on a plan of land prepared by Ralph Reed, Land Surveyors, dated February 20th, 2019, available for disposition with the following two restrictions. No wall may be placed thereon that is higher than the wall currently there, and two, no structure may be placed in the area directly in front of the home other than a stairway. And you want to add something to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're changing that right now. It'll be a single restriction encompassing everything. I need some time to write it out a little bit, so if we table this for a few minutes, let me write this out.
Okay, that's fine. So then, we'll just leave that off the
And you
table
had,
for now.
you have two rescind votes. If you want to cancel that motion, you still have another rescind motion to make.
Okay.
At the last Board of Selectmen meeting, there were two votes. One was to abandon and was to
So we have to rescind both.
dispose. So you have to
Right.
rescind both. So I forget which one you just read that passed.
Well, right. I move to rescind the motion that this board, at the meeting on May 16th, which was to make approximately 230 square feet of land, 34 Bayview Ave, available for disposition. The second one would be a motion to rescind our vote to,
If you flip to 5A in your folder. They're both listed out there.
I move to rescind the motion this board passed at our meeting on May 16th, 2019, which was to make approximately 230 square feet of land at 34 Bayview Ave available for disposition.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion's been seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
And you're going to rewrite that?
You got to move to rescind this. Oh, that was the second one,
Now,
okay.
we just did
We
both.
did both. So why don't we, you
Can I
take a
print
few...
this out somewhere, Tony? Is that possible in your office, maybe? It'll be easier if I just print it.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll go and get that done. Just give me 5 minutes.
Should we go through this new business while
yeah,
we're waiting?
we'll start the new business, okay? And you get a copy of what he's writing up and print it out for the Colsons. Okay. Is there anyone else for Citizens Forum? Anyone else would like to speak or say something? Billy?
Bill Mahoney, 179 Willow Road. Over a year ago, Northeastern set up a seawater update review. In other words, they had a MEPA site review. Most of the people in town didn't know about it. It was just haphazard. We're wondering, are they supposed to get in touch with the town? Because last year it didn't happen. We just heard about it the day before, that there was a site visit up at Northeastern for the seawater upgrade. I understand that they're going to do it sometime in the near future. Another application is going to be put forward. I think the citizens in Nahant want to know when it is so we can be there for the
We were
MEPA
gonna-
site
we-
review.
We had a meeting with Northeastern, Tony and I. And Tony, you want to give them the recap of that meeting?
Should we just, it's on the agenda, right? So,
What's on the agenda? We might as well take it out of order.
So I'm specifically talking about the seawater
Seawater,
system.
yes.
Start the MEPA review.
And there's a MEPA site review supposedly coming up.
Yeah, they
And
discussed
I haven't heard when, and I'd like to know
Can I
when.
clarify one thing, though? Last year, the February meeting we had, their attorney come up to me and gave me a bunch of green cards that were sent out to the abutters and sent to me. I was the chairman as a certified mail. I should have had that 3 weeks prior to that meeting. So, and I'm not defending them, but in their defense, we were notified, and I never got it. It was thrown
Well,
away.
it
So I'm
didn't,
just- I'm
it
just
didn't
telling
get
you
out
that's
to the
what
town
happened.
people whatsoever. We just haphazardly found out about it.
So this here, I don't think they put the MEPA review, I don't think they've applied for it yet. I'm understanding they haven't applied for it yet.
Okay, so when you people find out about it, will you post it or let
It's
the
part
town?
of, it's
give
part of my update that's on the agenda today. That's part of my update. I'll get into it. I just have to help Dan print that motion out, but
We'll
I'm
get, we'll
gonna get to it when
Billy,
we,
it's on the agenda tonight.
yes.
And he... I'm sorry? Sure, you can always speak. Well, he'll, let him go get the copy for Colson so you can understand, so we have the document.
Why don't we do this?
And why don't we just go through the new business? Okay. And then we'll get into that meeting and what they said and what they didn't say, and et cetera. On the new, I'm going to jump to new business. The approval of the one-day liquor license for the Nahant Public Library.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve one-day liquor license for the Nahant Public Library's 200th anniversary celebration of the library on June 1st, 2019.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Discussion. And we have a speaker. Yes.
Danny Munnelly, 6 Lodge Road, one of the trustees of the library. We're having the June 1st celebration, the 200th anniversary of the library's collection. It'll include a small table through Brett Henry's Mount Vernon restaurant with alcohol, just I think beer and wine and sodas. We're going to have cake to celebrate the 200th year, and tours of the library and some music outside. So we really like your consideration. Please attend and please approve our one-day liquor license. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting us. I know you've got what's it, Frank Cadilli put it in his memo already, sent the whole email out. He was trying to get everyone to come. I hope everyone comes.
Dudley and Ponzi.
Dudley and Ponzi. The motion's been made. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimous. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the Nahant Women's Club 19th Annual Holiday Fair, Saturday, November 30th, 2000, from 9 to 3. I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the Nahant Women's Club 19th Annual Nahant Holiday Fair on Saturday, November 30th, 2019, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Seconded?
Motion's been seconded. Is there further discussion? Hearing none.
Women's Club really plans ahead, November 30th.
Yes.
It's my only discussion.
I hope we got that date right. Seems way.
Yeah, no, they're way ahead of the game.
Yeah, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. The next one is the approval of the Nahant Music Festival.
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve Nahant Music Festival Opera Rehearsal is June 13th and 14th. Performances on June 15th at the Town Hall.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
The motion's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next is the approval of the library book discussion.
I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the library's book discussion with Michael Tugias for Tuesday, June 11th at 7:30 p.m. at Town Hall.
Motion's been made.
Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Seconded?
Motion's been seconded. Further discussion. We have a speaker.
I just wanted to make sure I got the name right.
Yeah.
You got it. Sharon Hawks, the director of the library. This is a kind of a preview to the Nahant Music Festival. Mr. Tugis has written a book about the wreck of the Can-Do due to the 1978 storm. And I think there are some people that, me for one, that are not aware of what happened at that time. He did write a book about it. He's a well-known author, best-selling author, so we're going to have him here. I think it'll be a nice run-up. One of the things that's happening in the Nahant Music Festival is they're planning a short opera based on those events and the wreck of the Can-Do. So this will be a nice run into that. We needed a bigger venue, and that's why we're coming to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, the approval of the book discussion.
Oh, the Wharf Street?
It's the
I'm sorry, the Wharf Street, block party.
block party, yeah.
The
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve Wharf Street to Walton Road Block Party on May 26th from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m.
motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been seconded. Discussion.
Nope.
No discussion. All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Next, we have an appointment of Reserve Officer Michael Lastisi. I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the appointment of Michael Leases as a reserve police officer in Nahant.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Seconded?
Motion's been seconded. Further discussion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Appointment of the Reserve Officer Joseph Maldonis.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve appointment of Joseph Maldonis as Reserve Nahant Police Officer.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been seconded. Further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, signal by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Next is the approval of the Little League practice and game schedule.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve Nahant Little League practice and game schedule.
Motion's been made. Is second.
Seconded?
Motion's been seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The Nahant women's softball practice and game schedule.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve women's softball practice and game schedule.
I'll second it.
Motion's been seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimous. Next is the approval of the decorative painting of town trash barrels.
Oh,
Okay,
that's Heather Goodwin wants to,
okay. Paint the barrels?
yeah, I don't see that in here.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the decorative painting of the town hall trash, the town trash barrels.
motion, okay. Motion's been made. Second?
Seconded.
Discussion.
Heather was the one that, and Kerry, I believe, went around and did all the barrels in the Nahant before, and they did a great job on them. People have always commented how nice they were for being, you know, and so,
Very creative.
yeah.
Very nice. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. You vote aye.
Yeah, I want to do the,
Okay. Next on the agenda,
let's,
Town Administrator's report.
do you want to do this first, Richie?
What's that?
This motion for the, want to wait?
Well, now, let's finish, well, we could,
It's going to have Northeastern on it, so let's,
ongoing business is next, so, I mean, if you want to, which
I didn't have much to report other than, Memorial Day is this weekend. DPW's been working hard to get the town prepared for that.
Yeah.
The project at the Ellingwood Chapel is complete, and the staging is down. The town float at the wharf is in, and the new gangway is installed. So, we've just been getting the town prepared for this weekend. Looks like it's going to be good weather, so look forward to seeing people on Monday.
I got to commend the Public Works, Tony. The cemetery looks fantastic. They really did a nice job. The new float and the new stairs down to the float is the addition to the one, no step there, going down. That was the most dangerous thing, going down that float. But you've corrected that, and that's really very nice. It's really come out nice. And you're to be commended for that. That's really...
Commend the harbor master and, the work that he did and the contractor that installed it, and, it was all their working, so I give
Wow, it's
pass credit on to them.
That's very good. Have you seen it? I don't know if you, John.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, look, come on.
I'd also like to, mention that the contractor who performed the work at the Ellingwood Chapel
Right.
is one of Nahant's own,
Yes.
Jerry Raphael, and they did a tremendous job.
Yes, I was going to bring that next. The chapel looks fantastic. And just in time, too. I think the crew down there, they're trying to figure how to, when they put the plywood down, the grass turned yellow. I think they're spray painting the grass so it's green, so I think, anyway, it looks, the cemetery is looking very nice. They did a nice job. Okay, that's it for the town administrator report. Ongoing business, Bayview Avenue. Did you have a chance to read that? You did? Yes, no, like it? No, don't like it? It's okay. So you
read the new motion?
You read the new motion?
We read the motion, basically Tony improved it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see it as being a problem. I mean, that's, and Richie had mentioned at the last meeting that it was just the stairs. So I think you were under the impression it was just the stairs.
When I went up to look at that whole situation up there, I was talking to the neighbors, and they eliminate that side, all that side, she eliminated completely, just the stairs. And then the neighbors, they didn't seem to have a problem with it. I didn't talk to you, of course. To see it, my Nahant Police CSI team look for you. Were you in Brazil or something when you were away? No, I'm only joking. Okay.
Okay, I move that this board make approximately 235 square feet of land in front of 34 Bayview Ave, as depicted on a plan of land prepared by Ralph Reed Land Surveyors dated February 20th, 2019, available for disposition with the following restrictions. No new structures shall be built on subject parcel adding to the structures, i.e. retaining wall or stairs that are currently there, which will be described specifically in the deed.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion's been seconded. Further discussion? Hearing no
You guys
discussion.
think?
I'm sorry?
Just want to make sure they,
They're fine with it. They gave me the thumbs up. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimous. Okay, undo Bayview, that takes care of now. We've got B, Northeastern University, the Marine Science Center expansion project and update. Here it is. And I'm going to turn it over to Tony. He was at the meeting with me. And we're the negotiating team, Tony and I, as the chairman. And I'll let Tony explain what transpired, what they told us and advised us. Tony?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, some time ago, we, the board, and myself, notified the public that we would keep them aware of any new information provided to the town from Northeastern regarding their expansion project. And that's the idea of this update. To quickly speak on Mr. Mahoney's comment, last year, they filed an environmental notification form with the state MEPA office, Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act office, and it only was in regards to their discharge pipe. There was a site visit. That was later withdrawn. So we were informed earlier this month by Northeastern that they were intending to initiate this process once again with the state, and that they would be filing their new environmental notification form with MEPA this month. And the way that the MEPA process works is two deadlines within the month. You have to file it by the 15th, or you have to file it by the last day of the month. They had called us and let us know that they were intending to file on the 15th, but they did not. We met with them on the 16th, hopefully the idea was, let's meet on the 16th and hear what was included in that filing, but they actually did not file on the 15th. And they told us that they intend to file by the end of the month. To this point, I don't know if they have filed yet, but I have a contact in that office.
Billy, hang on, let him finish.
I have a contact in that office that I've asked to call me or email me as soon as they file. And when they do file, it becomes public once it's called the Environmental Monitor. So there's, if you go on to the MEPA website, you can sign up for updates from the Environmental Monitor, so when it gets published, you get a copy of anything that met that deadline. The most recent one that was published, it wasn't included in that because they did not file for the 15th. So if they file, we'll be notified, we'll let the town know, and then it depends on what is included in their filing. They've told us that it will be one filing that includes the discharge pipe plus the building itself. They won't be separating it out like it was in the past. The MEPA office decides whether or not they're going to have a site visit. Given that they did a site visit on the last filing, they may decide not to do another, in which case, obviously, as the town, we would be requesting that they would, given that this is a much more expansive filing, not just on the discharge. It also includes impact to the surrounding property with the building. There's also a threshold that they would need to meet in order to be required to file an environmental impact report. I know the town had reached out to the state delegation to request that in the last filing. I don't know if the Secretary of Environmental Affairs actually required them to do that, or if they withdrew before that point. So you don't know until they file if they meet a threshold that requires them to file an environmental impact report or not. I'll
Okay.
pause there, because there's a lot of
I've got some
information.
input from some other people in town, some other fishermen who had talked, and I got the impression they were only going to try to file just a seawater update so that they don't have to go to that impact issue. And that's not kosher as far as I understand. I'm not a lawyer, but I understand if they're going to do a whole deal, they shouldn't subdivide this.
So I think the confusion was sourced by Northeastern. Jeff Trussell had, according to Jeff, he had said that he had made a promise to the fishermen that he would inform them of their environmental related, or anything related to the discharge pipe that would be included with their environmental notification form they would provide to the fishermen before they provided to the state. So he had provided that to, I don't know if he provided it to you specifically or other
people.
fishermen. I don't know what your line of communication is with him, but he had provided that to some of the fishermen, just that portion of it. And so I think when that was received, it was like, oh, here we go again. It's only going to be a filing regarding the discharge pipe.
Yeah.
But he told us, or Northeastern had told us that that is not the intent. They will not be separating it. It will be one filing regarding the entire project, which includes the discharge and the building.
Well, okay. In that case, make sure, I'd like to know when that's going to happen, when
So like I said, you know,
this site visit is going to occur. And I would submit that they need to do another site visit for the seawater issue. There's still a whole lot of issues there, even with the input from Trussell recently.
They had the meeting the last time up at the bunker. I would suggest that we have it here, have MIPA come in here and have the public meeting here, so, you know, these people, they can all come to it.
Based on, I haven't asked the board specifically yet, but that I assume we were going to be sending a letter once it's filed to the secretary making that request. They're the ones who decide whether or not they're going to require a site visit or not. I will say that the MIPA process it's an environmental impact process. It's not approval or denial of a project. And you need that certificate before you get into your Chapter 91 permitting, which does include a public process. So, you know,
But if it's a public process, these people have the right to go and talk about it, say something about it. So I think
there's a public comment that you can submit letters, you can comment on it, but the requirement of a site visit is, it's up to the secretary, it's up to the MIPA office to determine that.
Well, can we send them a letter? I mean, not so much a site visit. It's more of a, for man, Bill, you guys to come in and talk to them.
I just want to be clear that it's not
might
up to
not happen,
us.
right.
We will make the attempt, we will make the request, and I think the basis of that request is pretty solid, given the fact that the previous filing was only about the discharge, and this is much more expansive. So it does, in our opinion, require a new site visit. So we will definitely make that request, but unfortunately, it's not up to us. So I don't want to, promise that it's going to happen, but we will definitely make the request.
You want to say a couple words about the comment period is 20 days, right, after it's posted?
Right, so if they file by the last day of this month, the environmental monitor comes out, I believe, a week later. That, once the environmental monitor comes out, there's a 20-day comment period triggered, and then a 10-day comment review period by MIPA office. We can also request an extension to that comment period. However, I believe that it's actually the applicant who would grant or not an extension to the comment period, not the MIPA office. So we could make that request as well. And again, we won't know until it's filed if it meets a threshold of an environmental impact report or not. And if it doesn't, the secretary has the ability to require it. And I believe that's what happened the last time. It didn't meet that threshold. The town and the state delegation requested the secretary to require an EIR. And I don't know if if the secretary actually did or did not, but it ended up getting, the filing got withdrawn by Northeastern, so I don't know if they actually were ever asked to do an EIR under the last one or not. Northeastern reached out to us and they told us they were intending to initiate the state permitting process. And we scheduled a meeting with them to get an understanding of what was included in their filing and met with them on the 16th. But we know that they did not file their ENF on the 15th and that they were expecting to meet the deadline of the next deadline, which would be the last day of this month. And we won't know the actual details of the project until they file their ENF. But on the 16th, Northeastern gave us some details, some preliminary information about their intended plans and committed to keep us informed as they go through this process. So I'd like to go through some of the details that we received from Northeastern. Regarding the project, they said it's if you recall, if you go onto the town website and go to the Northeastern tab, you can download the PowerPoint that was presented on December 11th. And what they're looking to pursue is on that PowerPoint called Scheme B. So there was 3 schemes presented. This was the second scheme, which was about a 55,000 square foot building with 35,650 square feet on the east side. 18,000 square feet of that was buried. 17,650 square feet of that is above ground on the east side. And then on the west side, 19,350 square feet. They said that they would be moving the pump house, which is currently on the seawall for the discharge pipe, off of the seawall and putting that equipment within the Edwards building. So removing that pump house from the seawall on the beach. They said that the discharge pipes would no longer just be discharging water onto the beach, but would be subsurface and a significant distance off of the shoreline. And they talked about that some of the details of that building were still to be determined, and that as they were to take a look at some of the final aspects that the town would be included in that. They talked about the trailers, the current trailers that sit to right inside the gate of the Edwards building would be removed after this project was complete, and that area would be parking along with another area closer up to the second entrance, the further entrance, closer to the beach. There'd be a parking lot up there too. And that their utilities most likely would go through the buffer zone of the Wetlands Protection Act. However, they may be able to avoid that. Again, the timing and the process of this is that they plan to file their ENF by the end of the month. They do want to put some type of educational material for the community to let them know what it is that they're planning to file a permit application for, and that they didn't have any specific timing to provide us yet on a local permitting process, which they could do concurrently or after they complete their state permitting process. They also provided a list of community benefits that they would be willing to provide the town. And those include a conservation restriction on the entire property except for the ability to work on their new building and the existing Edwards building that they have. But no other part of that property would be able to be built on in the future. And also some type of legal document that would prevent them from purchasing, leasing, renting, using any other property in town. So this essentially stating that this would be their final expansion and they would not do anything else in the community after this project. They would continue their $25,000 a year to the Johnson School. They would continue with their 2 half scholarships to Nahant full-time students. They would commit to no housing, no conference center, and no commercial events. They would offer summer jobs for Nahant High School students. They would be open to satellite parking and shuttle services. Of course, removal of the seawater pump house off of the beach and the lobster hatchery as previously discussed. I don't have the specific details about the hatchery, but I think they've talked about it a great deal, and we can provide that later, more details about that. But landscape mitigation to the property, so post-construction they would do landscape mitigation that would be habitat restoration and include walking and hiking trails within the property that connect to Lodge Park and maintain both for the town, maintain Lodge Park and also maintain that area, and residents in town would have access to both. Well, of course, residents would have access to Lodge Park, but would also have access to the hiking trails that go down into the meadow area behind the bunker. They talked about the benefits of, so the intent of the project is to expand their university and look at climate change preparedness. And they talked about how benefits from that would be targeted for Nahant first before other communities, given that we would be hosting them. There's specifics, I think, missing from that I'd be interested to get more information, but the idea that they talked about was whether that be policy. You know, we have a policy issue right now dealing with 40 steps revetment, helping try to change that policy at the state level so that the town can build structures that help with climate change, or engineering or data research, or things of that nature, climate change related things like that. Again, I'd like to get a little bit more specifics about that. Discounted education for town employees and free programming for the school, for Council on Aging, things of that nature. And then lastly, financially, $500,000 up front in mitigation, and then $50,000 a year for 10 years. They did state clearly that this was their first initial offer and not their last, and that they expected the town to counter, and they fully anticipate engaging in additional offers after hearing back from the town. They mentioned, legally, they mentioned that they believe that they have the right to build on their property, and that they'd like to do so, but do so in a way to partner with the community and provide these benefits to the community if they were to be able to develop their expansion project. So as far as timing goes, we don't know when they're going to be filing locally. We don't know when we'll be speaking with them next. But I assume, immediately following them filing their environmental notification form with the state, I'd like to sit down with them and really digest, what is included in that. So that's what I had.
Tony, just to clarify, your point about this being their first offer and that they expect Nahant to come back with a counteroffer. I assume that does not apply to the building? Were they saying a counteroffer on the building or their compensation package or both? In that meeting, Richie and I spoke to them again about the size of the building and talked to them about changes to that, location, size. They made it pretty clear that this is the goal of their expansion requires this amount of space, and that they feel that they have the right to build on their property, and that they, this is what they want to accomplish, this is what they want to do. So I did not get the impression that they were willing to compromise much more on the size or location of the building, but that they were open to talking with the town about ways to disguise the building, ways to make, talk about landscape mitigation, details like that, but not so much size or location.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. Has anybody got any questions?
Christian Bauda, 3 Swallow Cave Road. Tony, there was a survey that was put out after the December 11th meeting in which the options were put to the public to see which of the 3 we preferred. I haven't seen any result for the surveys, but I'm wondering, did it in fact align with what they ultimately decided, or did they just go with what they wanted and disregard us
honestly,
entirely?
they haven't seen it either, so, and as you mentioned it, it's hitting me. We talked, Mr. Mahoney asked quite a few meetings ago to have that posted on the website. I apologize that it wasn't. But so the answer is no, because they haven't seen it either. From what I recall, and it was, 5 months ago now, but 4 months ago now, but from what I recall from the results of that was that as you for the most part, the results of that study or survey was that folks that responded to it didn't want anything up there at all. And then as you went down the schemes, it changed a little bit more open to Scheme B, a little bit more open to Scheme C. But still, vastly, most of the people that responded didn't want anything at all.
One suggestion I just put out there, I understand up to this point we've been very open with them in terms of you guys have taken a very conciliatory position towards this to not create any legal issues. I think, though, now they've made their pitch in terms of the compensation the town would get, I think it should be, would behoove us as a town to consider the cost to the town in dollars and cents for having a building like this up there. I'm thinking immediately like the infrastructure of our roads, the additional duties the fire service would require. Can our existing trucks even reach a building that's that big? A ladder truck can get up there. What's the cost of that? Our police detail obviously would need to be trained probably to respond to any kind of emergencies that might happen up there. I mean, you read all these terrible things about, accidents and shootings on campuses. God forbid that happen here. And I would also say, if the FinCom could do some sort of analysis and put a dollars and cents number on all these things, I think we would have immediate perspective on whether or not their offer of cash is anywhere close to what it's going to actually cost this town in the long run. And I also have done my own study, and at the next Board of Selectmen meeting, I'll bring it forward and share it with you. But just looking at the real estate value of the houses just on Nahant Road, it's about $80 million worth of real estate value. And if you just take, if I lived on Nahant Road, all these extra cars and trucks roaring past my house, I would immediately say, my house, this is not the town I bought property in, this changed. All this extra traffic is going to decrease the value of my property. And by my, estimates, just a 5% decrease in just the properties on Nahant Road, residential properties, would be more than $50,000 in lost tax revenue. And I'm not even factoring in the houses on Swallow Cave Road, Vernon Street, Cliff Street, which would similarly be impacted. So anyway, I just throwing it out there. I'll bring you my study at the next Board of Selectmen meeting. You guys can look at the data I put together. But again, I think the town at this point should take an active role in making an analysis on what the actual cost is to this community in dollars and cents. Thank you.
Just to respond, Christian, we are, and we would love to see that information that you have. I'm not going to go into detail on what our analysis has put forward, obviously, but I'm happy to talk, get that information from you. Any help like that, of course, is appreciated.
Marilyn Mahoney, 179 Willow Road. I just want to clear for the record, at that very first meeting last January or February up at the bunker, the residents that showed up at that very first meeting, you could have actually taken a shovel and shoveled us off the floor with the amount of shock that everyone that was there went into. I have here a Northeastern magazine that was published in 2015, but it talks about their initiative going back to 2011, and I just want to read something. We will build on the Marine Science Center in Nahant, Mass. To create a global center that addresses the mounting troubles facing coastal cities. May I remind everyone, we are a town. We are the smallest town in the entire Commonwealth. Out of 351, we are the smallest town. We are not a city. We are not an urban district. It's called the Sustainable Urban Coastal Environments. This is their own publication. May I continue? Facing coastal cities, including sea level rise, collapsing fisheries. The Mahoney family, along with a lot of other people in this town, are fishermen. And every one of them will tell you that that cove up there at Northeastern no longer brings fish and lobster. It's barren compared to what it used to be. I think some of the residents that live up there thought that they were swimming in warmed water by the tides coming in, only to discover that they were swimming in lab water. They also talked about invasive species. I believe when they did over Canoe Beach, they brought in sand from another community, brought it down here and put it on Canoe Beach. Did they ever do a study to see if there was anything invasive in that sand? Also, pollution and security. Pollution, may I talk, and my husband Bill knows this better than I. There's an outfall pipe in Lynn Harbor. It discharges a sewage that's treated from Nahant, Swampscott, Lynn, and Saugus. Now, they have been in our community for over 50 years. Everyone in Nahant knows that our beaches get polluted. Well, when there's a storm surge, guess what? Those pipes release raw sewage. Have any of those wonderful marine scientists up there taken that on? Now, all of a sudden, when they want to do a building, they're going to care about Nahant. Doesn't charity begin at home? Shouldn't they have been taking care of Nahant for all of these years? And you know, Richie, I agreed with you when you spoke at the last meeting about the fact that with all the building that's going on the other side of the causeway, you know, where the car dealership used to be, the porthole, where Christie's is, even on Monroe Street, you said we're going to need helicopters to get into Nahant. With 200 cars coming in here every day, we're all going to need helicopters to get around Nahant. So I'm concerned, when they had their meeting with us, they didn't show us where they were putting roads. They didn't show us where the parking was going to be. They didn't give us any night renderings about what's going to happen up there with lighting. And I heard about all these thousands of feet that are going to be built below ground. Does that mean East Point is going to get blasted? Come on, folks. Everyone at home, we all have to work together to preserve our community. I don't care where you live, it's going to affect every one of us trying to get out of this town and into this town. We have to worry about our children on bikes. We have to worry about the elderly crossing streets with these college kids that come flying into town late and they're speeding. We have to work together as a team to save our community. Remember, when it says entering Nahant on the other side of the causeway, we do not want it to say home of Northeastern North. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Suzanne Macarelli, 15 Little Nahant Road. I just wanted to remind you, Tony, what happened in Roxbury. They worked with Tito Jackson, City Council of Roxbury, for a year negotiating their dorms, promised, put it in writing, 8 stories. Northeastern built 22 stories. The response was, sue us. These are not honorable people. And I guess I want to ask our selectmen, what's our town worth? Is Nahant for sale? Is there a price tag you can put on our town?
Well, no matter whatever happens, has to come in front of the town. So everybody will have a chance to speak. And whatever, you know, I mean, they're back to the, you know, instead of the 60,000 square foot building, it's a 55,000 square foot building. You know, it's like, they offered us 500,000 mitigation, and 500,000 is not gonna even come anywhere near the increased sewage and water, public safety, dog officer, time, effort, so it's something that, we're gonna continue talking to them and, whatever they decide to do. Now, they're set on that Plan B, which is the 55,000 square foot building. They're going, that's the way they're gonna go through with this. So I don't, you know, we've gotta get some, we just had the meeting, so we haven't had direction from council. In fact, we're bringing in a special counsel just to look at this thing. Neutral counsel, so,
Great.
which is, it's gonna be interesting because we've got 2 opinions. The Nahant Wild people, they've got a council, and then we've got our own town council, that group. We're gonna bring a 3rd council in just to review our options. So we're not gonna, you know, we're just not gonna fold up, and this is not gonna, you know.
And I'll just, if you don't mind, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, just to reiterate, and I understand the emotion behind it, you know, aside from pushing back on the size of the building, we primarily listened in this meeting. Northeastern is telling us that they're gonna be moving forward, so we're sitting down with them to get as much information as possible, and we're bringing that to you, the public, to hear about. So I understand your comments about what happened in Roxbury and of that nature, but, you know, we really were just kind of listening, and we're reporting that to you at this moment.
Thank you.
I'd like to respond for a second.
Before you speak, John,
Go ahead.
I want to make sure that whatever happens between the board, no, I'm one of the negotiators with Tony, and then we advise the selectmen and the council. We're going to keep you advised, what they say, what date of meetings. We're not going to hide anything, keep anything, secret. We promised you that, and we're gonna live up to those promises, okay? And I just want to make sure, because the ultimate would probably be go in front of another town meeting. And then you can, people have their say.
Great.
But this is, they're hell-bent building that 55,000 square foot building, and they said it,
Well, we're hell-bent on stopping them.
Well, hopefully, we'll get let the people decide. And then that'll be the direction, because there's a lot of the Conservation Committee, the Planning Board, they're gonna be involved in that. Building inspector, the board is not, we can't deny a permit per se. It's those boards and those committees that will have to do one or the other, So, that's where that stands. But we're gonna keep you informed. We're gonna let it, keep it on the agenda, keep it fluid, so you know as much as we do, okay? And there's gonna be there's no hidden agenda up here, okay? Go ahead, Josh, I'm sorry.
On the remark that Northeastern made to you, Richie, and Tony, about that they believe they have the legal right to build, I think that's highly debatable, and we met in executive session last night and did debate that, and I think Nahant needs to exert its legal rights to achieve our community goals. This is a community-wide issue, and we need to approach it as a community, and it's my hope that none of us or nobody else in town takes that statement at face value, that they have the legal right to do that. There are laws they have to follow, just like all of us, and that's why we're seeking the legal counsel that Richie just mentioned. So I want everybody to know that it's not as clean cut as they have the legal right to do what they want there. There's quite a bit of legal debate on that, and we need to exert our will as a community to protect our community.
And just to remind you, the townspeople have spoken about this issue. And they, and it's very clear, they don't want any building up there. So, that's the guidelines we're gonna be going by. Billy, you wanna say something?
You don't want to mention it?
Billy,
What Josh said.
I'm gonna let you speak, okay? This is the last time you're gonna be, okay?
I
Because,
just want to point out the zoning bylaw I was looking at last night. Natural resource zoning,
yeah,
Bass Point, Bailey's Hill, East Point, and if you read the uses and what you can do there, it says you cannot build. And I think the community should look at that zoning. It's our town zoning, and I think we have a very strong case to tell Northeast
trust
no.
me, we're looking at all that, Billy.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I just want to remind everybody, the planning board met Tuesday night? Wednesday? Tuesday night? Monday night, sorry. And they are going to vote, they voted to send another bylaw, a
Change
change in the bylaw, not a non-zoning bylaw, but a zoning bylaw to the town of Nahant. So we will probably be having another special town meeting at some point to to adopt it. So, again, there's going to be another bylaw per the Nahant Planning Board. Am I correct?
Well, it's a change to the existing bylaw.
Right, but it's the table of uses they want to change, and they want to change
Yeah.
a bunch of, there's a few other things in there that they're going to adopt, so, and they're going to send that, well, we have to, actually, they should be, to me, it's backwards, because they do it, they do the bylaw, then they send it to us, and then we send it back to them. By law, we send it back to them to have public hearings, and then we have to act, the town has to act on it within a certain amount of time. So, I would assume we'd be having a special town meeting, probably, I would assume.
I believe it's within 6 months of the planning board posting. I don't know when the the start date gets triggered, but they have 6 months to have a vote on it, and
So
it
we
would
figured
require.
So it's just to clarify for the other people that haven't seen it, it takes that table of uses and for educational or religious institutions, it changes the permitted to not permitted in natural resource areas. And that makes our own zoning bylaws consistent from section 410, which is the natural resource paragraphs. Makes that consistent with this table of uses. So that's what the zoning bylaw change does. And as Tony mentions, once the planning board posts that, it gets posted in a line item, it becomes effective from that date. And but it needs to be voted on by the town, and it needs to pass by a 2/3 vote. And that vote has to take place within 6 months of the posting in the newspaper.
Most likely, we'll be in the meeting, calling a meeting, probably September, right in there, October, right in that 8-week window. Because they changed that bylaw, which is that zoning. Is right now, under that current zoning bylaws, it says you can build in for educational purposes. So they eliminate that part of it, which was great.
And just to clarify too, the planning board is one of a few groups or boards or petitioners that can submit a proposed change to the Board of Selectmen. Once the Board of Selectmen received that, which we did, if they met Monday, I think we received it Tuesday, we are required to send it to the planning board within 14 days of receiving it.
Yes,
So we already.
hold on, she's been standing there.
Thank you. Michelle Capano, 29 Ocean Street. I have a comment on Northeastern and then a completely unrelated question I wanted to ask. So with Northeastern, we're talking potentially 3 concurrent projects. We're talking about the replacement of the pipe at Bathing Beach. We're talking about the proposed now 55,000 square foot project and potentially another project on Canoe Beach. And no one's talked about, or it will need to be addressed, how they're going to manage these concurrent projects and why an environmental impact study to look at end to end, not just for that location, but the environmental impact for the entire community. So I would just take those and put them on your list, and hopefully they'll be able to provide a response. But I would think there should be an environmental impact study. We have been asked of that before. We've had no response to it, and now they're going to have 3 concurrent projects up there, and and you're going to see not just the trucks from the 55,000 square foot program, but now these other 2 projects. So, completely unrelated question I had. Who's responsible for the town signs? So like the speed signs, the one-way signs in town, the stop signs in town?
The Board of Selectmen.
The Board of Selectmen?
And, well, actually, the town administrator on the.
Okay, I have a.
As responsible, like, in what sense? Like
In replacing them, yes, in replacing them, posting them, okay. I live on Ocean Street. I've lived there for 10 years, and having grown up in this town, most people recognize Ocean Street used to be 2 ways, and now it's 1 way. And we really need to have a one-way sign pointing down from the top of Nahant Road to Ocean Street. I can't tell you how many times I see cars going up the wrong way. We've called, the police have posted, they've done a decent job of trying to remind residents and some non-residents, it's a one-way street. The other thing I will say is just recently, National Grid replaced the utility pole in front of my home. So there used to be a modified white and black one-way sign pointing down, and that needs to be replaced. But my ask is for 2 one-way signs, one at the top of Nahant and Ocean Street, and the second one posted back onto the utility pole in front of my house.
Is that like halfway down the hill there?
Yeah, it's,
So when you're coming up that, I forget the name of that street.
so if you take a right onto Intervale and you go up Ocean Street the wrong way,
That's probably where it's,
that's where the original one-way sign is, but we do need one at the very top. So that would be my ask. Thank you.
They're coming from, I know where they're coming from, the weddings.
We know.
Coming from that way.
Carl,
Kyle Macario.
Not on the agenda.
6 Hovey Way. I beg your indulgence. I have a quick question to Josh's point and to what Tony said and what you said, Mr. Chairman, about they seem to be hell-bent on building this facility. So I'm foreseeing, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I smell lawsuit and legal actions all over the place. How are we going to pay for that? What's the plan to pay for that? Who's going to pay for it? And where are we going with that?
We're still, you're talking about step 5, step 6.
Okay.
We're not finished on step 1 yet.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
But it will happen if we,
Now, has town council advised the town manager and the board of selectmen that they are not, that you guys cannot deny them a building permit?
No, I don't want to go into discussion with
Okay,
the town council.
Oh, they
because
haven't, I can tell you that, they haven't advised us with anything.
Nothing like that, yeah.
he's
Okay.
done, well, just, he's preparing us for that moment.
Okay.
Until they actually file a building permit application.
Yeah.
He's not going to make a decision or guide us one way or the other, but he's certainly been preparing for that and looking at our current zoning. He's now reviewing the proposed changes.
Okay.
And so that when a expected application gets filed, he can guide us one way or the other.
So just so I understand.
Excuse me,
Go ahead.
not guide us.
Right.
Guide the building inspector and the other inspectional services.
Okay, so on the planning board, real quick, you said that they voted, or they're proposing to change, to take out the 2 exceptions, educational facility and a religious facility. They're going to remove that.
Yeah, they must have come up with a pretty quick, because I don't believe they had any meetings to discuss how they were going to change that, did they? Have they? I haven't seen any public meetings over how they want to change the bylaw.
They had that meeting on Monday.
Monday night.
They changed it that night?
So they can just change.
They didn't change the religious, it's just the educational purpose.
No, it's both.
Is it both? They took both out.
One
Yeah, it
line.
would have to be both.
Okay, all right,
But it only applies to natural resource areas.
Right.
okay, thank you.
Are we all set? Is there anyone else like to speak before I start moving? Yes. Once we have a definite permit file, I think the board, and the town administrator will have a public hearing.
And anybody can appeal it.
And we can, then that whole process starts, there's a whole thing, things like that. Yes?
Hi, Ann Bromer from 29 Willow Road. It seems like we're at the beginning again. It seems like nothing has happened. The entire town, almost, is against this.
Yes.
It's been said to them, in front of them. There's been 2 big presentations. They have choices. We don't. That's our kind of holy space. Maybe they own it, but this is going to be a big lawsuit because nobody wants it, or very few people want it. And it's as if they don't give one damn that we've all said that. It's like nothing has happened for a whole year to hear this report. They're actually deaf.
Well, once they file the permits and the plans, I think you'll see the action being taken then.
That's when you appeal it.
That's when we start, the legal apparatus from the town starts taking over. We represent the people, and the people don't want this building up there. It's very simple. We just, I think the number of cars coming in, the students, the professors, and all this is, we're a very small town. I mean, this is not, this is not Oregon. They want to build something, and the town's against this. So we'll face we'll face that music. The problem is, legally, it's going to cost a lot of money, and hopefully that money will come forward. Okay, we've got different people in different committees are going to put up substantial money. This is going to cost money. And the town right now, financially, we just couldn't afford a major lawsuit. We just can't afford it. And I told them in the meeting with Weir, this is just the drama they've caused the taxpayer, the townspeople. This is all drama. People just getting, and it's coming through now. They're going to start acting out. They think they can do anything and everything. It was like the scholarships, I assumed there was 2 full scholarships when I asked for the scholarships. And I found out later it was just half scholarships, which was just shocking to me. And the trust factor, after 51 years up there, they're just not, truthful. And I just, we need to keep an eye on exactly what they're going to try to get this ramrod, this thing through, okay? And they could care less about the cars coming into town or, but we've got to, there's a complaint here about traffic now in a couple areas. And one of the areas is talking about stop signs and caution signs and cones and for the kids coming out of school. It's getting dangerous in some of these areas. So we gotta take some appropriate action. Anything else?
I just wanted to follow up what Ms. Brommer said. I think you're right that Northeastern's agenda is to advance Northeastern's agenda, not Nahant's agenda. And I think Nahant's agenda needs to be to advance Nahant's agenda, not Northeastern's. So, we, again, as a community, have to advance our agenda, not simply accept Northeastern's agenda.
Okay, is anything else? I'm going to start moving to adjourn the meeting in a few minutes. Did you have a...
Yeah, I do. This is nothing to do with Northeastern. Okay. This has got to do with the community rating system. And it's the community rating system verification material. I'm looking for volunteers to help me with the community rating system. I need maybe 3 or 4 people that probably are in a floodplain that pay flood insurance, because it will give them, it'll give people that are in the floodplain discounts on their flood insurance. It can work up to 40%. So What we need is elevation certificate. We need to provide a copy of your standard operating procedure with elevation certificates. So anybody that's interested, map service information, provide a revised copy of publicly publicity log and mailing lists, outreach projects, how we outreach people. We've done it through the census, we've done it through the tax bills. Open space, provide a map with acreage of open space along with a list of specific parcels. Please, they also need, make sure, I'm trying to read without glasses. The map is labeled with total acreage and numbers from the parcel list. Higher regulatory standards. They want a letter which explains which version of the state building code is enforced in Nahant. And repetitive loss lists. Provide a map showing the areas in town where all the repetitive loss are. Provide a copy of the outreach project, how we can aid these people. Now, I know there's a couple of people on Fox Hill Road that have already reached out to me, and I've written letters for them. They're looking for grants to actually raise their homes and take them out of the floodplain, which is a great thing, and you can get grants for that. And provide a completed page on that, and flood management planning, checklist on how we're going to alleviate the flooding in Nahant, because ultimately this comes from the insurance ISO that works with FEMA. They don't want to pay. FEMA just doesn't want to pay anymore. They don't want to give out any more money to these repetitive loss people, and they want to educate people on flooding and how it's just a money pit for them. So I'm looking for volunteers. Anybody that wants to volunteer, they can call me, because I've done most of it, but it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, and I could really use the help with this.
Sounds like a lot of that stuff the town can provide.
Yes, I have provided a lot of this to him. They need verification, though. All right, I want to
From
How many people you need, Angelo?
3 or 4. I mean, and it's people that are in the floodplain that really should be interested in this, because they're going to get it. Once we get in it, they'll get discounts on their flood insurance. The other part of it is Nahant has to comply with the laws. I've mitigated 3 properties. I don't want to mitigate any more. We have to follow the rules from here on in. So. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. On Dog, yeah. Well, that's the other thing. That's the MVP's working on that, a grant for that.
I had
Well, again,
I'll respond to it. As it was Josh had asked that I provide an update on that at this meeting, but obviously there's a lot going on. But essentially, we used funds that were appropriated at not this town meeting, but the one previous, to try and fix that issue. We went into the easement which is in a homeowner's property, dug down, found the pipe, and found that it had been cut, and that the seawall was built in front of it. I don't think that's the current homeowner. I think it was the previous homeowner. The easement restricts that pipe to 18 inches. So the amount of money that it would cost to remove that seawall, permit, design, extend an 18-inch pipe, the cost benefit isn't there, because 18 inches is so limited for the amount of work, for the amount of water that area gets. Well, that's the other thing. The other piece of it is, we're looking at the pipe that goes from Castle onto the, that just falls short of the beach, but what we really should be looking at is all the pipe, the stormwater system within that area that gets to that point. We're trying to go through that process now. Dan Coughlin, our engineer for the town, has been doing a study of where the pipes are located, and cameraing a lot of those pipes to see the condition. The next step is a hydrology study of where is the water flowing. So, you know, again, because of how much it would cost to take that seawall down, to permit it for an 18-inch pipe, and we don't even know if the water's even getting to that pipe in an efficient way, we're almost back to square one, unfortunately. So luckily, the town became designated an MVP community, which makes us eligible for an action grant where they will match every dollar we spend with $3. So we have the money, we have about $120,000 left from that 175. And we have a few, you can also account for in-kind services, so DPW work, hours of that nature. We have future money that we just approved in this last town meeting for the compost site. And we took all of that and kind of combined it into an application that we've applied for to turn that 140 into 500. And the idea is to use that money to buy pumps in the short term, and long term is to do a hydrology study and the design of improving the entire stormwater system in that area, and potentially a new discharge pipe that would be subsurface, extend further, potentially a permanent pump attached to it, a natural base solution. So there's a lot. Unfortunately, we dug down, we got to the pipe, and when we saw it was cut off, it sent us back to square one. So we're working hard to get it done, to get something done, and that's why we're going to try to get pumps at least in the short term. So if we do have another flood, at least we have temporary pumps on site that we can help try and pump water out if we do experience a flood.
We had put some pumps in that manhole on Castle Road during that March storm, and it didn't even touch it. It just kept pumping and pumping and pumping and pumping. There was 3 or 4 pumps in that manhole.
Well, I think once you clear out the ditch from the lower Fox Hill to the Kelly Greens, you clear out that ditch, the flow of the water will be much better.
It will be, but ultimately, I think permitting is the big thing, Billy. You know, permitting it with ditches going right across the road.
I think that Fox Hill Road, the lower Fox Hill Road, actually the Double Shabbos house, that pipe, Doggy Beach, the sand has come up almost, it's buried that pipe, and it keeps going up. Even you see the right-hand lane of coming from Little Nahant to the Coast Guard station, the banks, you see them, they're just building up. And that sand is just buried those pipes, so that used to be a split down behind, about halfway down Fox Hill Road, the water would flow to Doggy Beach. Now it doesn't flow at all because
the pipe has been cut.
Well, the pipe's been cut, but it doesn't matter because Shot Beach is just huge. I mean, they probably added 5 feet to that, 6 feet. You can see the incoming lane on the right-hand side, the banks, the embankment. It's all built up. I mean, it's just...
That's dune.
That dune is just growing.
That's very important.
I also have...
That's what saves us.
No, I understand. But anyway.
I reached out to mosquito control as well, and trying to get them to come out in the next week or two to do a site visit.
We should call someone from the county and get them down here.
Permitting is a big thing. It's very difficult to permit a pipe that would go across.
I don't want to shut
from the
anybody off,
ditch
but it's getting...
right across the Doggy Beach.
It's getting
Mr.
late.
Chairman, if I could just mention one last thing.
Yeah, well, I got a couple things here.
The community garden behind the school, this is year 3 since Paul Kyra was running the community garden, and the model changed about 2 years ago, and we're starting to see the garden worsen in condition. Folks using the garden is decreasing because of the condition of that. And I've met with Paul Kelly, who is now a school teacher and is in charge of administering the plots there. And we've decided that next Wednesday at 7 o'clock here in the town hall, we're going to have a community garden meeting. And he's sending out an invite to his list of folks that have been, have rented plots in the past. And I invite anyone else who's interested in getting involved in the community garden to come to that meeting. And basically what we're going to talk about is the limitations of the town and the limitations of the resources, but how we can overcome that and create a new model that might work, where the community gets together and there's some money in the budget for the community garden right now from donations in the past. So basically we're going to try to figure that out. And I think people are eager to get started on this because it's garden season. So Wednesday night, 7 o'clock here in the town hall. If you're interested, please come, and we're gonna try to figure out a new model to make that a successful community garden.
Good. I just want to bring up, we've got a safety issue here down in the letter submitted to the Board of Selectmen concerning the Margarine Park and Tudor Beach.
Mm-hmm.
If you can follow up with the police chief on that?
We have.
Yeah.
I have, and I've talked to Vi about it.
Yep.
We are increasing patrols in that area, and we're gonna move the speed sign down there. And then I'll be speaking with Tim and the DPW about signage and crosswalks as she raises it. But we are taking a look at it and trying to get people to slow down in that area.
The other thing I want to bring up is the continuation of breakage of the water mains, gas mains, sewer lines on Willow Road, Ember Road, and Valley Road. We've got these 18-wheelers coming down there, going down to deliver whatever. I'd like to have the chief and you look into stopping 18-wheelers from coming down there. Those pipes, I was talking to Timmy Lowe, those pipes are only 3 to 4 feet below the surface. And these trucks, they're so heavy, even the giant buses, the scenic cruises, they're going down coming down Valley, and they're taking Willow, and just the weight of these things are breaking these pipes. It looks like a checkerboard square down in that whole area. So I'd like to have you look at that, and with the chief looking at that. These things coming down Ocean Street, I mean, she can tell you, we've got to either eliminate them completely and have a weight limit on those streets and prevent them, and those deliveries, they're gonna have to, half-ton trucks or something. These trucks and buses are very heavy, and it's breaking all the pipes, and, I mean, we had just, two main water breaks down there just recently.
Crushed pipes?
Yeah, crushed pipes, and then they couldn't fix the shut-off valve. The valve, they found it and it was broken, they had to replace it. And you can see it going up in front of Ocean, down at the end of Ocean and Valley, and it's just getting worse. And we continue spending money. I know Public Works is down there, they started at 7 in the morning and went right to 11 o'clock at night. I mean, the overtime alone, for those, they had 4 Public Works guys working, with a backhoe and trying to repair those mains. And I've been meaning to bring it up and I haven't. And now I saw that to the beach, Margarine Park, with the speeding, and they speed down there too. No one stops at the stop sign. I'm sitting there right there, getting in my car, and they're going through there like going, So I'd like to have some increased police area surveillance and work up with the chief on what we can do and how we can limit the 18-wheelers coming down there.
They can deliver beer in smaller trucks. Yeah,
That's
I mean,
what I was
down
thinking.
Spring Road, they are enormous.
I know the board turned me down on the request of the paper street next to the first tee box. that road that it's on paper, it's going through there, it would be easier coming through there, not going in the park, but coming next to the first tee. That's a road on paper, on the map. I'm not sure if that would be, because this way here, they come down Castle Road and take a left right, and they're right there, and they go back out the same way. But anyways, it's something to think about. Yes?
So, Michelle Capano,
You can
29 Ocean
only
Street.
talk 3 times, and
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
I believe there is a process for the town that they can go through and have the community roads reevaluated and then restrict the weightage of trucks coming into town, which would require them to get a permit from the police chief. It's also a source of revenue, and then the revenue can be used back directly to road maintenance.
Good, thank you. That's great information. Okay, the board's going to be going into summer schedule. And the summer schedule for June, July, and August will be meeting on Wednesday evening, 1 meeting per month. It'll be on the 3rd week of the month. And if we need more meetings in between that, we will hold them. The town administrator will get us together. So for June, July, and August, this will be the last meeting. It'll be the 3rd week of each month. The second thing is the, what is this here?
Memorial Day Parade.
Oh, yeah. We've got the Memorial Day Parade, which is usually Molly Conlon and has always done a great job in getting the bands. It's usually a great event. It starts the summer. It will be coming this Monday. It will start at the Veterans Memorial Park next to Lowlands parking lot. We'll be closing the Nahant Road down there. The kicks off at 9:30. I think the road will be closed. Police will stop by, you won't be able to go down the Nahant Road from the Coast Guard station. You have to go up Castle. The parade will commence and march to the wharf. At the conclusion of the ceremonies at the wharf, the parade will march to Nahant Road, and from there, past the town hall to Green Lawn Cemetery, and we'll have the normal presentation and ceremony there. And at the conclusion of the ceremonies at Green Lawn, the parade will march down to Nahant Road to Veterans Park and place a wreath there and say a few words. And then there'll be a luncheon at the life-saving station for everyone in the parade and kids, and a cup of chowder and a hot dog, ice cream for the kids. So it's gonna be a nice parade, and I've checked the weather, and it's gonna be 70. It's gonna be perfect. So hope to see you all there. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I will entertain a motion that, make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Good night. God bless. Have a great weekend. Thank you.